Almost there. It's Angus Young. It's almost Friday Night Lights. College football, pro football around the corner. Hey, but right now it's podcast number 4, smashing together. Josh the Proud Principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland, ISD, Garland, USA, Texas. Ready to rock and roll and learning from. Check this out. Look at all this. My finger don't fit. The whole country is here. And you know what? What do we need? We need you. We need you to come and share your tools. Come and share your ideas because you know what? We're only stronger together and iron sharpens iron. So remember, if you're in Alaska, if you are in Hawaii, if you are in Maine or in Florida or anywhere in the 48 middle, we need you. If you're watching this on the rebroadcast, like it and share it because you know what? We're ready for them kids to come in. Either if we're ready or not, they're still going to be coming in. So what do you think about that, Dean Packard?
I think iron sharpens iron, man. You are on fuego, my friend. You do it every time we go on. I love that. Hey, listen, Josh, we got a great cast here tonight. And for those of you who don't know me, I am one of the co-founders of Unlock the Middle. And I'll tell you, Josh, you always throw the credit my way. But, man, you just never stop. You are like a machine. So I'm so happy and proud to be working with you and Chris alongside doing great things in the world of education. My name is Dean Packard, the proud principal of Bay Path Vocational Technical High School. Boy, that's a lot right there. That's a change of pace. But I'll tell you what, I am a happy guy moving into a new territory, having a lot of fun doing so. And tonight we're going to learn with some of the best around the country. Smash number 4. Hi, guys. Welcome to the show. Quick wave by everybody. Thumbs up that you can hear us. So good. Excellent. Hey, very quickly, before we begin, just around the horn really quickly, your name, where you're from, and your role. Let's start up at the top with Eric. Go. Well, I don't know what your team might be. Yes, you got it. Yes.
I am Erich Price. I am from Washington State, and I do some coaching consulting with principals and superintendents.
Awesome. Welcome to the show. Kyle, you're up next.
Hey, I'm Kyle Hill, founder of Recharged Family, but my day gig is I'm a resource teacher and resource lead in Delaware, where I help to support staff who supports kids with needs.
Awesome. Great stuff. Welcome, Kyle. And we have Barbara up next.
Hi, I'm Barbara Bray, and I'm an author, podcast host, consultant, and just having fun.
A little bit of everything right there, Barbara. Welcome back again.
Oh, I'm from Oakland, California. Sorry.
Oakland, California. Excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much. Kip, you're
up. Kip Shubert from Woodland Park, Colorado, 9,000 feet up in the mountains. Author, podcaster, speaker, and then by day, a high school counselor.
Oh, man. Great stuff right there again. And Erich.
Erich Bolz, retired school administrator from the state of Washington. I work at the Center for Educational Effectiveness, where I do podcasting, blogging, educational consulting, surveys, research, and evaluation.
Man, we hit the jackpot tonight, JT. We hit the jackpot. You're up, man. Q2.
My phone was dying. I'm sorry. Technical difficulties over here. Hey, so you know what? This is Podcast Smash 4. And what we need to know is one thing. You all have
He was going to say you all have a role model in education. And I know Josh so well that I'm just going to pick up with that. Well, he unfreezes and he'll be back on. So why don't we talk a little bit about that role model who inspired you to get into education and to be at the place you're at right now. Let's go with this one. Let's go, Barbara. You're first. Well, Josh reconfigures.
Okay. I guess the role model was my mother. And she was an entrepreneur, and I was in a profession I wasn't happy with, and she knew I loved teaching, and she kept pushing me. So I'm very grateful that I had someone like my mom be there for me.
I love that. The staple, the foundation. Really good stuff right there. Kip.
Yeah, I would have to say my dad, my hero. He was a longtime educator before he retired. And basketball coach, and I actually went to college to play soccer. I didn't go to college to get an education, and so I kind of fell back. I kind of fell back into it. I asked what the easiest major was. They said phys ed. I signed up, and so here we are. 32 years later, still rocking it in the educational field and just loving it.
Awesome, great stuff right there, Erich. Going to go right next door to you.
So I'm also the child of 2 educators. So first role models, both of my parents, really fortunate in that regard. And then so many folks from 2 mentor principals, mentor central office administrator, and mentor teacher peers in my first 4 years of teaching. What I appreciate about all of them and try to emulate is they really saw something in me that I didn't see in myself.
Man, that brings it to the next level. Great stuff right there. Kyle.
I would say I did grow up in a house filled with educators, my father and my grandfather as well. But I would say 2 teachers, to be honest with you, inspired me to the point to get involved with special education because I was, as a struggling kid academically, struggling behaviorally. A lot of teachers didn't enjoy my jokes. They didn't enjoy my antics in the classroom, except for a couple. And my 3rd grade teacher was like the first teacher to look at me without like the glassy-eyed stare, and maybe laughed at my jokes a little bit. And I started to learn school doesn't have to be a place where, you get barked at and barking orders and frowned at all the time. So Mrs. Lane in 3rd grade, and then my high school teacher was Mr. Tubb, sorry, that was the kind of guy who would jump off tables and really ended up being that's how I figured out my style as a teacher when I was getting ready to go into to be an elementary education teacher.
Awesome. Great stuff there. Next up, Eric.
Nobody in my family was educators. I think the only direction I got from my dad was I was going to go into law. And he said, if you go into law, I am going to write you out of the will. So then I had to do the next thing, which was education. I had a guy, Glenn Hankins, who was probably 60, 65 at the time. Great guy, as assistant superintendent at a local school district, and really loved kids and just was a super generous guy. But he was really my role model, taught at the University of Oregon, and was my role model to getting into education. Like, it isn't necessarily about the reading and the writing. It's about loving kids, and really I've modeled much of that after him.
Awesome. Good stuff right there. JT, you're back with us.
I'm telling you, these technical issues, these difficulties. But you know what? It doesn't matter. We push ahead. That's what we do in education. We keep on pushing.
We adapt and adjust, baby.
Exactly. Hey, and the second part was real quick. Who currently drives you? Who motivates you, Barbara Bray? Who pushes you to love kids and educators?
Well, you, for one thing. You've been on my show, and when I finished with our talk, I just felt so good after. It was just wonderful. But I can't really limit it to 1 or 2 people because I have the wonderful opportunity to meet amazing people from around the world who share their stories and challenge me, and sometimes say, I've never told anyone this before. And I go, I'm going to put this up on the internet. I just want to let you know. And they're like, do it. I got to get it out there. And I think they're so brave to share their stories. And that's who I look at, are these storytellers who just blow me away. And educators are so brave and courageous right now. I just want to do anything I can to advocate for them.
Thank you, Barbara. I love it. Yes, Kip.
I've got several people who come to mind too. And first, my results coaches, Darren Peppard and Brandon Beck, they drive me on a weekly basis in the areas that I'm in, and huge inspirations for me. Also, Steve Wolf, who does Wild Heart Retreat. He's a good friend of mine. He's why I live in the mountains. A former superintendent here at Woodland Park, and does a great thing for teachers with the Wild Heart Retreat. If you haven't checked it out, check that out. And then I think Jeff Kubiak, he's my brother in crime. I know he was on one of your shows here recent, and he's just an amazing guy, and we have a similar story, so we've really connected. So those 4.
Thank you. Eric.
I would say 2, and again, really hard to single out individuals, but we serve amazing clients at the Center for Educational Effectiveness, and to know that you're making a difference and no longer be yelled at from the assistant superintendent's chair, which was the last 9 years of my career, is pretty awesome. I feel blessed to do that every day. And then I think EP would agree. We have just had the most amazing slate of podcast guests, and what we learn from the folks who come on our show. I wish I had that knowledge in my tool belt when I was practicing in the field. So I would say those 2 things.
Love it. Kyle.
I guess I'd go a different way. I get the most inspiration by the teachers and the paras and the administrators that I work with in our school district, to be honest with you. See the great things they're doing, have the most respect for those who roll up their sleeves and they're the boots on the ground. There's obviously you all here and anybody involved with education podcasting. I'm an ed podcast junkie and my own show and have people on my show. They all inspire me as well. But, locally here, just the people I work with and get to see the magic they do in their classroom trying to support kids.
EP?
I'm going to echo what Bolz said. We did a little bit of I was a part of the tail end of a grant from the Gates grant, and we work with all of these fantastic outlier schools, and we get to see these leaders who are really unique in their trust level with the folks that, with whom they work. And I mean, Bolz, I know, and we were just actually speaking about this earlier. There is such a weird political dynamic, I think, in that political structure. And when you see this trust-based relationship and it ends up being good for kids, I mean, it just blows your doors away. And so we get that good fortune of talking to those kinds of people like on a day-to-day basis. And so I am incredibly fortunate and driven by those people that love people to love kids. So super, super blessed.
Thanks for sharing. Everybody.
That trust-based relationship part, I absolutely love that. Every institution, every school needs to have that at the core foundation of what they do. And I'll tell you what, the benefit for kids that come out of that is absolutely off the charts. Hey, shifting gears back for a second, you guys all have busy schedules. You're all making a difference. You're all ripple makers in my mind. What did you do during the summer to get rejuvenated for yourself? I mean, that is a huge piece of self-balance that we all need in this business, whether you're serving the capacity in a school right now or you do outside just podcasting and networking. Everybody's going to take that time to balance. So let's talk about that for a second. And let's go counterclockwise here. And let's go. You're up first, Eric.
If it's not appropriate, I'm going to go straight to daiquiris. But besides that, I think I'm a big pickleball player because I'm too old for tennis now. So I do a number of pickleball tournaments and great people, good connections. It's a nice group. So really for me, going and playing pickleball and getting beat by people that are much older and not as movable on the court, very humbling experience, but it's a great experience for me.
Humbling is great. Kyle, you're up.
For me, it's today, tomorrow, always my family. I'm fortunate enough to have 3 amazing kids who I love dearly, and they drive me nuts like crazy, like they're supposed to. 3 kids with unique needs, and so we have a house filled with ADHD. Bless my poor wife, but we have a good time nonetheless. And then I enjoy my projects outside of work that I get to do in the summer to try to build things like we're doing. Josh and Kip and Barbara are all involved with our virtual bash we put out. So things like that really keep me juiced up and get me rolling into the next year.
Yeah, you do some great work, Kyle. You should be very proud of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
Barbara, you're up.
Oh, I am. Well, I've been taking it easy this summer. I'm getting ready to go see my grandson who turned 9 months. He's up in Portland, Oregon. And for me, it's like, family is everything, just like you said, Eric, and I'm sure everyone feels the same. It just means a lot. So I try to spend time with family I don't see. My kids don't live close, so it's kind of nice to go see them. I like to work in the garden. I'm reading a lot, and I'm trying to get healthy. I've had some health issues, so you can kind of hear it a little bit. So I'm working really hard to get strong, and I'm much stronger than I was. So it does work if you put your mind to it.
I love that. You're going to accomplish whatever you set out to do, Barbara. I already know that about you. Kip.
Yeah, well, me and my wife are mountain people. And so usually during the summers, we get away to a different part of the Rocky Mountains somewhere, or Smoky Mountains, or wherever. This summer was really full of all different. I've just been really, really, really busy. However, like some of the other guys and Barbara just said, being able to go out and see my grandkids, and I've got 3 grandbabies in Lincoln, Nebraska this past weekend, and my daughter came out for a couple weeks this summer, and then to follow her barrel racing that she does, and just kind of relax and just to sit back and watch with pride just my kids and what they do. This summer has really helped me do that. And I got to speak at Wild Heart retreats every week. So for me, that was kind of a soul cleansing and rejuvenation thing for me too. So this summer it's been family and work.
Yep, definitely the balance. And Eric.
Yeah. So been fortunate, maybe took a page from Kip's typical book, got to spend time in the mountains of Alaska, the Cascades in central Washington,
Nice.
and Montana. So for really most of July. And then my kids are 20 and 22, one recent college graduate, one still in, and they're both home for a stretch, which doesn't happen all that often anymore. So like everybody else, feel real fortunate to be kind of in the teeth of that, experiencing all those great moments right now.
Great stuff by all of you.
And before we get into Kyle, real quick, tell everybody about the bash.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. So, hey, we pulled together just a bunch of people I've been fortunate enough to connect with through the years, podcasting and beyond. And we got over 50 workshops and all kinds of free resources on top of it. And you get it for like $10. So actually you get it for $8 if you use a coupon code BASH, BASH. You can hook up rechargefamily.com and all kinds of good people, like some that are here. And then we got educators from all across the country. We have some international presenters, and it's quick, powerful, 20 to 30 minute workshops that are just going to give you something that you can have access to all year long and keep you juiced up, but also give you tools and strategies. I've just been really impressed with just the overwhelming support and people who are just, yeah, absolutely, we'll jump on this. Threw out a big net to a ton of people, and everybody's busy in the summer, all kinds of stuff. But so many of them were like, yeah, I'd love to be able to do this and be a part of this. And we just had a really good return. So I'm really happy about it. Thank you for letting me throw that out.
Where can I get it, Kyle? Where can I get it?
Yeah, rechargefamily.com is, you can go there, and then you can link right to where you need to go.
Got it. Okay, everybody. So the purpose of Dean and Chris's idea of smashing all the podcasters together is about learning from each other. Now I've had the pleasure of hearing you guys, you know what, but you all have different audiences and you're regional, some of you, but this is a platform to spread it out through we literally have the whole United States here. So this is a 3-part question. We'll start off with the Erichs, because you guys are a tag team here. So Erichs, please let us know when you started it, what's your format, and who's your audience. 3 parts. When you started it, what's your format, and who's your audience?
Bolz,
Go
you
ahead,
pick it up.
EP.
No, I'll pick up the trash. You're the mastermind.
All right, we've been at this about 2 years. Like Erich said, we had the fortunate distinction of being selected at CEE to conduct a positive outlier study of schools in Washington State with a little bit of Bill and Melinda Gates grant funding, and we had 2 greater good deliverables, and they gave us lots of flexibility. So we picked Mastermind and Podcast kind of out of the sky 2 years ago, and both of them have really taken off. Our audience, I would say initially, was mostly educational leaders, but we're really getting some nice play in the teacher space right now. So audience is expanding a little bit, and loving that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, we see now those principals and soups that are listening to it. Now they're using that as PD for their teachers. And I think it's playing really nicely because it's great stuff. It isn't Bolz. We have no idea. Like
Right.
The way that we did this thing, we bumbled into it. We have a fantastic producer that actually makes us look kind of middle of the road because we are not. And so it's his production and the great guests that just have got fantastic things to say.
And piggybacking
about
on
education.
that real quick, I would say our formula is we do the tag team hosting, which is an awful lot of fun. We're super mediocre. I agree with EP's phenomenal guest, and I happened to be at our producer's house tonight because I was working out of town in Central Washington, couldn't get back home. So at our really talented producer's house. So our formula is great producer, great guest, two bumbling ex-educators, and we're starting to get some traction.
That's awesome.
Love it. Thank you for sharing. Kip.
Well, I started the Secret Sauce with Kip Shubert about 2 years ago. And, the format is I do individual shows in between having guests on. And when I have a guest, the format's just really kind of similar how we started this one, just who has inspired them as an educator and to get into education. But we get more into like their own personal story and how that story becomes powerful moments that we can use in the classroom, or we can use with staff, or we can use in our personal lives too. All about taking, your struggles to strength. And so I think the audience, it's really for all educators, but educators who are down and out, maybe burn out, who are going through a really difficult time and just need to be able to find that fire and passion again, is really who it's targeted to.
Love it. Barbara.
Well, I started Rethinking Learning podcast in 2017 to get the stories from educators. That was my audience. It's grown. It's now, I've had filmmakers on, I've had scientists, I had an AI machinist, learning guy from Germany. I mean, I'm like, they're coming to me and I'm like, I love it. I'm loving the stories, and the stories are what kind of empower me. And I'm starting a new podcast. It's called Real Talk with Barbara and Nicole. It's Nicole Biscotti. We want to talk about authentic discourse in a polarized society.
Oh, wow.
Ooh. We're going to get out there and down and dirty to find out, how can we talk with someone we don't agree with? How can we, there's all these things. So we're meeting all the time, just having fun, thinking, oh, we're going to do this, because some people might not want to talk to each other, but it kind of came out of, I've had some people on my show, like I've had a filmmaker who did she created a film called Listen, which was with 6 people that had 2 different perspectives on gun control, immigration, and abortion. And she got them to talk to each other and actually like each other. And I thought, well, that's cool. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at, but I'm still doing the Rethinking Learning. I'm working on my 148th episode with a really cool guy, was a drummer with Beyonce. I'm kind of like, what? Anyway, that's what's happening to me, is I get wonderful educators, but once in a while somebody sneaks in and says, I love educators, and I like, cool. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Kyle, thank you for sharing, Barbara.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate to be a podcaster as well. I love it. I have 2 shows, and so I'm the founder of Recharged Family. So really, what that means is I try to support educators, and I try to support families, and I try to help build a bridge between the families and schools. And so I have a podcast for educators, Exhausted Educators Recharged Show. And the main goal is pretty simple. We just try to bring on amazing people and have them help educators get their educational battery recharged. And then I also have a second podcast. It's a mostly solo podcast, occasional interviews, but it's built for parents. And the idea is I'm trying to give them information about how to support kids, especially kids with needs, especially kids with identified disabilities, but kids who are struggling in general. As somebody who's struggled themselves, I just think it's important to be able to put out information, not just for educators, but also to families. So my ultimate goal in everything I do is to support both educators and families and help everybody try to build a bridge. So, because the most successful thing that will happen for our kids in the classroom is when we get everybody involved, the family, the community, and the education, all of our staff working together as a collaborative team. That's how you make the biggest positive impact on kids.
Love it. Thanks everybody for sharing.
Yeah, what you guys are all doing, and I know you realize this, you're creating a ripple effect. You're giving back. You're creating something in education that is sustainable, and you can reach out and you can get it anytime. So I love that. Literally hundreds of episodes between all of you on this show, which is fantastic. Now, peeling that back just a little bit, let's talk a little bit about your shows. And so what have you learned? Tell me something that you've learned by being the lead podcaster on your show. And what interview kind of stood out the most that you can think about that comes to mind with you? Let's go with Kyle first.
Yeah, I learned that getting started was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I mean, it's been a few years, but I had this idea like, you know what? It wouldn't be that hard to just, record it, put it on YouTube, strip the audio out. How hard could that be? Months later, after I finally, starting from scratch, and whittled my way through it, I was able to finally pull it all together. But it was a lot of hard learning at the beginning. And I, didn't have a lot of people that I knew locally to lean on, just people that I'd listen to, occasionally fire a message off at. And thankfully, some people like, the Josh Stampers of the world were able to give me a little bit of direction. But just getting started, I think. And as far as like, I've had so many great guests, but probably one of my favorites is a local person that I just love. And he's actually in our school district. He's a 5th grade teacher. His name's Rashawn Ward. And he's just a high energy, high octane guy, just brings positivity. Locally, he's kind of a superhero, to be honest with you. My girls have twin girls. This is the power he has. They were not at his school. They actually wanted to switch to his elementary school just for 5th grade so they could have a year with Mr. Ward. So he's probably just a high octane person. I just appreciate him, and all the other guests. Just have great people. Been really fortunate to get people from all over the country to pop on.
Yeah, great stuff right there. Barbara.
I'm trying to think of, it's hard because I have so many people in my
what have you learned about yourself? Think about what have you learned about yourself as the person behind the
what I
scenes?
learned is I needed to do a pre-planning podcast so I could really get to know the person. I did that with Josh and some others, and I wanted to make it like we're on our virtual porch, just having a drink together, and I wanted them to feel really comfortable because I also put together a post. So it showcases the person that I'm talking to. I want them to celebrate their story, celebrate themselves. And some people I've talked to didn't ever feel comfortable. So I've had some teachers who don't have a website, so they actually post on my site a lot until they feel comfortable. I feel I can help them get that self-confidence that, people actually are listening to me. I guess I'm okay, that kind of thing. And I just feel everybody has a story. Everybody's just so amazing. When you sit down and really get to know them and they tell you something and you go, well, we're talking about that kind of thing. Because it's amazing. Everybody's story is just so wonderful, but they're afraid to tell it. And so teachers also, when they share their story and show their vulnerabilities, it really models that for the kids. So I tell them, take it, tell them what you're doing. And then I've had some teachers then start student podcasts. They got so excited. And that's my thing, is how do you get the stories out there? So
yeah, I love that. That's great stuff right there. Kip.
I think the main thing I've learned through the 2 years doing the podcast is how to be consistent. That's one thing I'm coached on a lot. Consistently showing up, especially when we get really busy, or when I'm coaching during season, it's really hard to get the podcast in with everything else. But the consistency that it takes, and I think the value that I feel from really learning how to have authentic, unscripted conversations with people, just to sit down and share about what we do and what we've been through, I think are the things that I've learned the most. And as far as guests, kind of like Barbara, there's been so many that have been so good. I would say Josh, but he's a wise guy, so
don't feed him yet. Don't feed him.
Yeah, I know. Jeff Kubiak is one again. We have a very similar story. We're both in recovery, and we connected from that angle. And so being able just to share about things, even off the podcast before we go on, this was an amazing conversation to have someone who's been through some of the same things I have been through. And then also a guy named Eddie Wright. He is the athletic director for Oklahoma City Public Schools. And Eddie played soccer for me when he was a kid. Yeah. And when I was struggling in probably back in 2007, I was really going through struggles, and Eddie got me back into coaching. He became my assistant coach. Then I ended up leaving him the program when I went to rehab. So he took over and has just done amazing things. But to have him on, someone that I've known since he was like 12 years old, to see him do such a great things and to share about that was powerful for me, I know, and it was one of my best episodes as far as people listening to it.
Yeah, right there is powerful. Absolutely. Eric Squared, let's go with Eric Price first.
I think I'm actually a voracious learner. I think because my memory is so bad, I can't remember the crap that I've already learned. But I think Aaron Christopher with Eric Sabota, when they came on, I did some professional development. Sabota had me up at his district, and Aaron Christopher was keynoting for there. And his whole thing was listen. So Barbara, he actually has his movie is called Listen as Well, just fantastically produced. I thought that's what you were going to talk about when you were hitting on that. But really amazing. I think that coming from my educational background, I'm a data guy, let's do the way, what's the best practice. And now I've really flipped to, I need to listen to people. We need to build that trust. I need to listen to them. I need to understand their story and where they're coming from. And I think we just see that on repeat over and over and over. I don't know if Bolz feels the same, but that has been my huge learning. And I don't remember, what else did we need there, Darren?
No, just like just the episode that stood on your mind, but you talked about that and what you learned as a speaker, as a podcaster.
Yeah, and I think that as a podcaster, when I can open up that platform and let them talk, I've got a lot to say, and I just have to shut down. Bolzy reins me in. I think it's just, if I can just listen and let them tell their story is everything, right? So if we can get that story out there, it's great. So that Jamie has helped me with that, our producer. Just let the story roll. If we can let that story front it all, that's it. So,
yeah, great stuff right there. Second, Eric, go.
And I would say I learned, it's not really a learning, it's maybe a reinforcement that, when you're part of a team and you're the weakest link, then you're always going to be successful. So learn to surround myself with better people. EP, our great guest and our lights out producer, I think they are chiefly responsible for whatever success would be attributed to me. And then I think our favorite episode, my favorite episode, EP named one of the top ones. About 10 come to mind, but my very favorite episode was, and he's actually more of a friend of EP than me. We interviewed a superintendent who I knew in our state. He had retired superintendent, and he had stage 4 cancer, and he was moving off the planet. And part of me wanted to reach out to him and say, hey, Nick, we'd love to have you on the show. But it felt really disingenuous because, he was truly at end stage life. About 2 months before he passed away, he reached out to us and said, I love you guys' show. We all have connections because, as you know, if you work in a region, the educational world is small. And he came on and told his story. And his whole purpose for coming on was really just continuing to share his wisdom because he wanted to make a difference in this world right until he left it. And he passed away about 6 weeks after we had him on the show. And I continue to be moved by his incredible selfless acts of service right until the end of his life. Just incredibly inspirational.
Those are the people that
move.
Wow. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to give you 45 seconds to think about it, all right? The whole purpose here is not only to promote the beautiful show that you've created and have just educated so many people around you, but now I want you to go into, I'm going to show my age. Go into your card catalog and do your Dewey Decimal System and think of 3 guests you'd like to tell people about that appeared with you. That way they start following them and they get their knowledge. So I'm going to give you 45 seconds and I'm going to go to Kyle first, all right? Hey, Dean Packard, now that you've become a high school principal, what's one of the great things that you've learned?
I've learned that I have to slow down and be a really, really effective listener. And I learned that my staff, just like kids, are people that I need to meet where they're at to be able to build that entry point to trust and to be able to move that needle to where we need to go. I'm coming from a school where I had a 75-member staff, basically, to a 200-member staff now with 1,200 kids in 10 towns that it services. So it's a big job because, everybody has their own thoughts about things. But when we tie it back into the core and what's good for kids, that kind of depersonalizes all the conversation because that allows us to make pathways. And for me, I find that really, really exciting. Even after 30 years in the business, business in one place and going to another to give it a shot. So yeah, Josh, I know I don't look that old, but after 30 years being somewhere, you wise guy, that I start all over again and just getting it done. And you know what? That's the beauty of this business. After 180 days, guess what? You got a whole new chapter to write. You can always reinvent yourself. And that excites me more than anything else. And being that battery charger for people around me, my gosh, what a powerful thing that is.
All right. Thank you for sharing that, Dean Packard. We gave him enough
Yeah,
thinking
you got
time.
45 seconds. We wait time, brother. Let's go.
Time. So we're going to start up there with Kyle. Three guests that our followers, your followers, should check out wherever they are, whatever venue. Let them know, Kyle.
Gotcha. So the first one I will say is, to be honest with you, I straight up fanboy for this guy. And so when he came on, I told him ahead of time, like, I just want you to know, I've read so many of your books. I've listened to so much of your material. Just really, I was kind of surprised he showed up, to be honest with you. So Michael Gurian is probably a name that most people aren't aware of. But let me tell you, as somebody who work in the special education space, doesn't take long to figure out that we work with a lot of boys in special ed. And so my first year teaching, I was a self-contained 5th grade classroom, 17 kids, and I think 14 were boys. And I thought, that seems like a lot of boys. And then the second year, I was in full inclusive classroom, but my special ed caseload was about 15, 13 of them were boys. And I started to think, there's a lot of boys in special ed. So that's not drawing a general stereotype overall, just in general, we see a lot of boys struggling in schools. And so I say that because Michael Gurian has written, I think, 32 books, and he is a guru on how genders, how just basically adapting your brain, how we think instructionally within a brain according to the gender too. So like, for example, learning that boys really benefit from movement at a very young age. Right? It's really hard for a 5-year-old to sit in a chair, right? I fell into that category. Getting them moving with controlled chaos, obviously, is very important, okay? So he dives into all kinds of things like brain stuff that I just totally geek out about, strategies for boys, strategies for girls, and he's got an incredible podcast really geared towards a lot of families, helping parents, and I think they're well into like 50 million downloads, something crazy like that. Like they're just huge, him and his partner, and he just continues to pump out stuff. There's just so much good stuff. So Michael Gurian. The next person I would say is a good friend of mine, Josh Stamper, who does the Aspire to Lead podcast, which many of you know. He's part of our Teach Better podcast network. And I just say, if you're looking for like a more just calm, very thoughtful influence, he's a person to go to. He's just an all-around good person. Him and we connect well. He's got a whole gaggle of kids himself, and just being a dad, and we connect well from that end. When I had him on the show, he was talking about leadership and also trauma-informed practices, he's kind of a guru in that area. And then the third person is probably somebody you've never heard of either, Matt Sikoria, because I do a lot of work in special education. My job, I'm in charge of intervention programs in our school district, but I'm also, because like everybody, we're struggling for people. So I've also become a quote unquote guru of behavior support too. So I was really happy to get Matt Sikoria on, who's a behavior analyst, really well known, another guy who has millions of followers in the world of BCBAs, and that is working with kids with more intensive behavioral needs. And he's very thoughtful. He like some of you on this board, just travels and provides so much good information for so many people. And he's just looks at it in terms of the individual child. What are their individual needs? What can we do before behaviors occur? What do we need to do to support them after, so we get them back on track? So those are three jumped off the top of my head. And thank you for the 45 seconds to pull that together.
Kyle, thank you. And just so you all know out there in the audience, I'll be getting their individual spotlights, and I'll be posting it on social media. EP,
Thank you for the wait time too. I already talked about Aaron Christopher. Really changed my thinking, but Darren Pepper. Hey, Darren, I see you there in the comments. Hey, here's a shout out to you. I love Darren. I love his perspective on kids. And so I think somebody that's been in administration and leadership and they still see that I want to do the right thing for kids, Darren's right there. So if you haven't checked out his stuff, fantastic, solid gold. Janelle Keating, she is someone who really was a mentor to me. She worked with the DeFores, Bob Aker, and with a lot of PLC thoughts. And she came into a district that I was in central administration, and really was an amazing kind of side-by-side coach for me in the PLC world and what we were doing in the district at the time. So Janelle was amazing. And I think the last person, Jim Sporleader, I don't know if you know that name or not. Jim is from the Paper Tigers movie. I don't know if you've seen that one, but really, Jim was the first one that kind of came into my life, and I was in a principal of a middle school, and Jim kind of taught me how not to do spin the wheel of misfortune on kids, and just to sit and talk to them and to say, hey, what's going on? How are things? So Jim Sporleader, absolutely, I think really a big building block in my life, just to look at the kid and talk with the kid and say, hey, what's going on, instead of this is what's going to happen.
Love it, Barbara Bray.
It's so hard. I have so many. But Hedrick Nichols comes to mind. Hedrick and I, we call ourselves soul sisters. We started a long time ago doing a reflection on what to do about anti-racism. So in the reflection, which was reflection number 6, I have reflections also. We put together a whole paper on with scenarios, and it was do this, not this. And so we spent a long time working on that. And then I had her on my podcast. And mainly, if you don't know Hedrick, you need to know her. It's Hedreich. She goes by that. And she has Small Bites, and she has Blind Spots from Solution Tree is her book, and she has multiple books on racism for children, which all have been banned in many states, but she's just not giving up. She's amazing. And so Hedrick is on, like I said, there's 2 for her. Another one is my other soul sister is Eileen Winokur. Eileen, I met her in 2017 and we became friends ever since and roomed together. But the other thing is her life story. She ended up meeting someone in college and falling in love and moving to Kuwait and changing everything, culture, everything about her. And she was an educator, worked as a professor, and is always giving back. And she wrote a beautiful book called Journeys to Belonging, and also another workbook with it, and goes to schools and helps schools all over. So she's on 2 of I've had her on a reflection and also on one of the episodes. And then the last one is my new co-host, Nicole Biscotti. Nicole does a lot of work on ADHD, mainly because her son had problems. And so she came to me a long time ago because I'm on EduMatch, and I have a book with EduMatch, and I said, I'll help. I'll be a reviewer. And so I helped, and she wanted to do a story either about her grandmother or her son, who is 9 with ADHD. And I said, do your son, and have him help write it. And they did. And so her son, it's, I can't learn unless I'm moving or something like that. I can't remember, but it's so amazing. You have it? Is that right?
Actually, yes.
Yes. And so Nicole is wonderful. And I also had her on my pod. So I had some people with reflections, and that's why they came to me. There's so many more that I would mention, but those 3 right now stand out.
Thank you for sharing, Barbara. What about that secret sauce?
What about it? Man, you guys have named some big time people. I think I chose 3 that kind of in a little bit different spaces. But first one is Lindsay Titus. She's on the Teach Better Network as well, and she has Defined University, and she just really talks a lot about self-awareness and answering that question, who am I really? Because if we're going to really relate to staff and students, we really got to understand who we are first to have those authentic relationships. And I just love what she does. Very inspiring in that space. The second one for me, again, is said his name several times, is Jeff Kubiak. Follow what he does. He just wrote a book called Monsters Have Manners. That's his second book. It's a children's book. And, again, we connected through our recovery from alcoholism. But we've been talking about mental health and wellness for educators, and not just from a recovery standpoint from like drugs or alcohol, but from just everything that we've been through, especially since COVID, and how important that is for educators to be able to continue to be rock stars, to find that wellness for themselves too. So follow Jeff. And my last one, I'm going to have to piggyback on EP, is Darren Peppard with Leaning Into Leadership podcast. His Road to Awesome stuff that he does. I would not have the podcast that I have. I would not have had my book published this summer, Struggle to Strength. Darren published that with his Road to Awesome publishing company. And he's just been a relentless force in the educational space. And he talks about, why does it always have to be about what they do wrong? Why can't it be about what they do right? And that's what changed his life. And kind of what Erich was talking about earlier, he saw things differently. And so he started seeing those relationships and how important they were to really get the results that you wanted to get. And so follow Darren at the Road to Awesome and Leaning Into Leadership.
EB.
So yeah, it was interesting to hear EP's take. So I wrote down a number because I didn't want to duplicate. We host the same show. Just a quick shout out to Darren, his Road to Awesome, and echo what Kip said. Darren's been an immeasurable help, not only in securing guests. We've helped get Darren a couple of guests on the show, and what a great mentor to me as I left education and not knowing what I'm doing, running into people like Darren who are just selfless and so willing to help. So piggybacking on that, Janelle Keating, want to piggyback on that too before I pick my three, because I still get three, right? I sometimes start to think of myself as somebody who really knows a fair amount about curriculum instruction and assessment. And then you find yourself in a conversation with Janelle Keating and you're like, oh, hey, this is an instant dose of humility. I know absolutely nothing. So Janelle is somebody folks should absolutely follow, because not only is she brilliant, that I think the most brilliant people break things down in incredibly practical ways. So piggybacking on EP, really think the world of Janelle Keating. The three that I picked since, EP got first pick, Aaron Jones is somebody I think that will really resonate with Barbara's kind of new movement.
Yes.
Aaron Jones's book, Bridges to Heal Us, is something everybody should read. She's out of Washington, but has a pretty big national platform. Just an incredible female African-American force in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Aaron has a gift because her life story is so unique. Aaron has a gift of just bringing people together regardless of perspective. You can't dislike each other if you've been in a room where Aaron's facilitated a session. And again, big plug for her book, Bridges to Heal Us. And Barbara, she would be awesome for you to have on her show, kind of knowing your bent. Our good friend Randy Russell with RLR Consulting, also Superintendent Freeman, Washington. Many of you know Randy. Randy's got a number of things. His 3 Ships is a great read. He's also developing right now a next level leadership series, predominantly for building principals and central office administrators, on 10 facets of leadership that in half-hour snippets you can really basically upskill yourself. And I think that's going to be a super compelling series. It's actually being produced by our podcast producer, Jamie Howell, here at Howell at the Moon Productions in Wenatchee, Washington. And then folks that maybe aren't as well known outside of the state of Washington, but really should have a national platform, the dynamic duo from Gonzaga University, a Jesuit place with a basketball problem. You may have all heard of it a little bit. And Chuck and Suzanne's Powerless to Powerful framework, I believe, is the best organizational framework for transforming school leadership there is. Can't say enough good. Suzanne's last name is Girtz, Girtz. She's the one more active on social media. Chuck's a bit reclusive, but their book, Powerless to Powerful, Transforming Systems for School Change, is the best read I've ever had. It's a synthesis on all the levers to pull in the context of school improvement. So those are my 5 favorites. Thank you, EP, for throwing those other ones out there.
Nice calls.
That was a lot of great information right there, Josh. Think about that for a second. Hey, guys, very quickly, what podcast do you listen to and recommend and why? Very quickly, off the top of your head, what podcast do you listen to and would you recommend to somebody and why? And I know you probably have a lot out there that you'd like to say, but I'm going to limit you to one and you're going to hit it fast and really hard. EP, you're up first.
Did you limit us because the Bolz went on 8 recordings there? Yeah.
No, it's okay. No, we're just looking at the time, and I know we ended 60 minutes. So.
I listen to Smartless, and I love their conversation. And so it's just stupid stuff, but it's real people telling stories. So Smartless.
Awesome. Good stuff. Barbara.
I listen to Smart List.
You can't take his answer, though.
I know. I listen to so many Small Bites by Hedrick because they're small bites. They're little ones. And
awesome.
I could say so many more, but
Yeah,
absolutely. We get it. We get it.
for me, Podcast University with John Gordon, one of my favorites.
Good. Awesome. Kyle?
I'd say Brian Martin's podcast, Teaching Champions. I probably listen to. I listen to a ton, but Brian's just a really energetic, but just a really true human. You know, cares about people, and he has really inspiring stories from all kinds of educators all across the country and beyond. And I just enjoy listening to him just about every week.
Awesome. Good stuff. EB, you're up.
Become a better consumer around the science of reading, knowing that we've got vendors and elite university personalities that have really, I think, put things out there for selfish personal gain versus helping folks out. The podcast, literacy is a civil right. The podcast, Sold a Story, is an absolute must consume for educators.
Perfect. Great stuff.
Love it, everybody. And just give your Twitter handles real quick. Oh, I'm sorry. Your X handle real quick so people get a hold of you.
Yeah, that changed overnight, didn't it?
it's BBRAY 27, Bray 27.
Kip.
Secret Sauce EDU.
EP.
Erich Bolz, ERICHBOLZ1, the number one.
And that guy up there, Eric Price, we got to get it. You know what? He needs to put down the beta tape. He needs to stop buying his pants at Montgomery Wards. He needs to stop renting his movies at Blockbuster and get on social media. All right, EP? All right.
Yeah, I'm a social recluse. I'm sorry. Yeah. So confluenceleadership.net. That's where you're going to find me.
Kyle.
I'm on all the socials at Recharged Family.
Love it, everybody. Thank you for our podcast smash number 4 done. And you know what we did on the red zone? We scored another touchdown, Dean Packard. We scored another touchdown up the A gap. Touchdown. We won the championship for this week, but it's not over. Dean Packard, it is not over. Flagship show. You and Chris got another great tandem this coming Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Principal L, Superintendent Jones, and TJ Vari talking about their book about keeping our team members there. Great show put together by Chris and Dean. Get it to rock and roll, and we wish you nothing but the best. What do you think about that, Dean Packard?
I'm going to tell you something, Josh. You're going to include yourself in some of these conversations. Stop making everybody else look good around you, because you are one of the main reasons why we're so successful. And don't ever forget that. Hey, listen, great time tonight talking with all you guys. Thank you very much. Eric Squared, we got Kyle, we got Kip, we got Barbara. Just great stuff, man. Continue doing what you're doing. Continue to thump the drum and continue to be a difference maker, because that is why we do what we do. And that's all I've got, man. Anybody else want to add in?
Humbled and honored, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yes.
I was going to say thank you for the invite. Appreciate you guys.
We love it. Hey, and everybody out there, make sure you have a great week. And don't ever forget, everything you do is for betterment of kids. Hang tight, everybody.